2021, New York State passed the adult use recreational cannabis, a law that really overnight had created an entire industry. Suppliers would need to catch up with demand as customers reacted to this new legislation. And this has created a vacuum that entrepreneurs should be able to capitalize on if they learn from the lessons from other states that have already passed recreational cannabis. And if we collaborate up and down the supply chain, entrepreneurs are in a good position to really get here on the ground floor. This is why we're here today to talk with industry experts to elaborate on those lessons learned and eliminate some of those barriers for entry for those courageous entrepreneurs willing to invest into growing this industry. My name is Patrick Boyle. I'm the Executive Director of Ignite LI. We are the Manufacturing Trade Association for all products made here on Long Island. I have the honor of going up to Albany and down to DC and talking about the challenges and the opportunities in manufacturing here on Long Island. Just want to take a moment to thank our board members here, Board President Ann Shabunko Moore, GSC Dynamics, Anthony Akampora, partner at Silverman Akampora, Emma Lee, president of A&Z Pharmaceutical, Phil Caniglio, director of the DeMatteis School of Engineering at Hofstra University, Jordan Finkelstein, president of Exergy, Mitchell Reckler, president of Reckler Equity Partners, Michael D'Addario, vice president of operations at D'Addario and Company, and our newest board member, Dr. Hank Foley, president of NYIT. Thank you to our board members who do such a wonderful job of giving us industry insight and leading Ignite LI. I want to also take a moment to thank our sponsors, Industrial Coverage Corporation of Patchogue, Burden LLP, Wells Fargo, Citrin Cooperman, Denko Energy Management, Summit Safety and Security, and Dale Carnegie. So here's the context of the conversation that I'll be guiding this morning. In early June 2021, New York State passed the adult use recreational cannabis, a law that really overnight had created an entire industry. Suppliers would need to catch up with demand as customers reacted to this new legislation. And this has created a vacuum that entrepreneurs should be able to capitalize on if they learn from the lessons from other states that have already passed recreational cannabis. And if we collaborate up and down the supply chain, entrepreneurs are in a good position to really get here on the ground floor. This is why we're here today to talk with industry experts to elaborate on those lessons learned and eliminate some of those barriers for entry for those courageous entrepreneurs willing to invest into growing this industry. I want to take a moment to thank our partners and panelists for being here this morning. Steve Melito from Davidoff, Hutcher and Citron, Mark Alessi from the Business Incubator Association of New York, Mark Maniscalco from Exergy, and they're going to talk about heat exchangers, which I think is really neat. Dr. Richard Vogel from Farmingdale State College, who created very quickly a wonderful program to train up young entrepreneurs. And then, of course, Harry Carpenter from Citrin Cooper. So with that, I think that we'll start off this morning. Steve Melito is going to give us a really nice overview of where this bill came from, its history, and how government reacted to it, and then what his group is doing to help folks really capitalize on these opportunities. Good morning, Steve.
Pat, thank you so much, and thank you very much to Ignite LI for having me today. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being with us. I'm going to just kind of kick this off with a brief overview of the New York State Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act of 2021, also known as the MRTA. So it started out, obviously, the past couple of years, there has been a law in play, out there, a piece of legislation for many, many years. But what finally passed was Assembly 1248A, which was sponsored by Crystal People Stokes, who is also the majority leader of the New York State Assembly based out of Buffalo, and Senate 854A by Senator Liz Krueger, who is the finance chair in the New York State Senate, who is based in New York City. If you wanted to look this up, you could use either one of those, or you could use Chapter 92 of the laws of 2021 when it was signed by the governor. The law does three key things. Number one, it establishes a new Office of Cannabis Management. Number two, it creates and regulates a taxed cannabis industry in New York. And number three, it establishes meaningful social justice initiatives for the industry as it gets off the ground. So let's just take these one by one. The first thing is that it establishes a new Office of Cannabis Management. The leadership there is going to be something called the Cannabis Control Board. The board will be made up of a board chair that will be a paid position and 4 unpaid board members. And then there will also be a paid executive director position. There will also be a chief equity officer that will ensure compliance with social and economic equity plans that will be put in place through the law. And there will also be a state cannabis advisory board. That board will consist of 13 non-paid voting members and then numerous representatives from government agencies in New York State. This part of the office will be specifically to advise and issue recommendations to the Cannabis Control Board. So what does that all mean? What's the effective date of all this? When does this actually happen? The effective date in the law is a gigantic, very confusing paragraph. So there's more of a simple answer here. The simple answer is we need the leadership to be put in place. That hasn't been done yet. It is still being negotiated. Once the leadership is in place, you're going to see the staff start to build out rather quickly, I believe. And then what you'll see is you'll see the regulations released, and that'll be the time where we'll start to see some of these license applications come out and the opportunity for us to really get going here on Long Island. So number two, it creates and regulates a taxed cannabis industry in New York. This law is going to create a number of new licenses that I think will be very interesting to a lot of folks here on Long Island. There will be cultivator licenses, processors, distributors, retail dispensaries, test laboratories, and delivery licenses. Going back to the cultivator, processor, and distributor licenses, you will be able to have a combination of any of those 3 licenses. However, if you have any combination of those 3 licenses, the caveat is that you cannot also have a retail dispensary license. Retail dispensary licenses will be permitted to have up to 3 stores, whether it's on Long Island or throughout New York State. The medical marijuana laws really were untouched for the most part. They've been left the way they were. And so medical marijuana agencies, companies, which are also known as registered organizations, ROs, they will have one little nuance. They will be permitted to have cultivator, processor, distributor, and retail distributor licenses, but those will be limited to only 3 of their retail stores, of which they can have, I believe, upwards of 8. There is an opt-out provision in this law for retail only, but it is a little bit tighter than previous iterations of this law. Previous iterations allowed for counties to opt out, and if folks recall, Nassau and Suffolk both opted out prior to any law actually being passed. Now, counties cannot opt out. Towns can opt out, but only for their unincorporated sections. So if you're an incorporated village or a city, you cannot be opted out by your town. You actually have to formally opt out yourself. Number 3, it establishes meaningful social justice initiatives for cannabis in New York. So what does that mean? One thing it means is that it prohibits vertical integration except for micro businesses, some of which we will be talking about later in this program. This is primarily designed to protect the retail sector from being overwhelmed by larger national chains, which will certainly have every right to participate here, but the goal here is to not let them completely take over the process. Very interesting. It establishes, and I think it's very, very important, it establishes a goal of 50% of the licenses going to equity applicants. So extra priority is going to be given to folks impacted on the war on drugs, low income, and have been convicted of cannabis-related offenses. Social equity applicants are going to include those impacted, as I just described, women, minority, veteran and disabled businesses, and also distressed farmers. So those are the three things that you're going to see. Those are the three things you're going to see as we move forward that are going to get implemented, gradually as we build this out. But, once we start to see the agency actually get leadership, things were probably going to move pretty fast. And that's pretty much my presentation at this point. Thank you so much, Ignite LI, and thank you, Pat.
Well, thanks, Steve, for joining us this morning all the way from Tatooine. And I just want to mention, of course, this is probably, hopefully, the last virtual event that Ignite LI will have. And because of that, of course, I messed up and I did not hit start the webinar as I was giving my intro. So fortunately, Steve, I think I hit start webinar right as you were speaking. So if you wanted to just give a quick intro to yourself real quick and let everyone know who's talking.
Sure. And so I am Steve Melito. I am the state government relations chair for Davidoff, Hutcher and Citron, and I also happen to be the chair of our cannabis practice.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
And my name is Patrick Boyle. I'm the executive director of Ignite LI. I won't run through the whole intro again, but just wanted to thank you again, Steve, for being here. Actually, Steve, I just wanted to ask you, can you run through the licensing categories again? Because I thought that those were really a good spot to start with where opportunity begins.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're going to have cultivators, which are just to be clear, are growers, processors, distributors, retail dispensaries, test laboratories, and delivery licenses. So a lot of licenses out there. And something I didn't mention about retail dispensaries so that folks understand. My understanding, now obviously this is not hard and fast, but my understanding is that there are going to be a lot of them. The mission here is to, somehow emulate the amount of liquor store licenses there are, or liquor stores, I should say, in New York State. Every retail dispensary gets up to three stores. Liquor stores, there are 3,500 in the state. So to give you an idea of what the state is thinking, we could be seeing upwards of 700 retail dispensary licenses handed out over the course of a couple of years.
Excellent. Excellent. And this is actually a good time for me to tell everybody, if you are watching and you want to ask a question, just shoot it here in the chat or raise your hand or send me an email. We have a question here from William Keller that says, I read that the town of Riverhead voted to allow cannabis dispensaries. Have any other towns or villages decided to allow dispensaries at this point? I don't know, but I wonder if maybe Steve or Mark Alessi might have that off the top of your head.
We're kind of monitoring this, but I don't know anything other than what Riverhead has done. Mark, you may have some other info.
No, I mean, actually, I think the vote is usually in the inverse. They don't have to take a vote to allow it. They have to take a vote to disallow it. But Riverhead may have had a discussion at a town board meeting and decided not to opt out and may have taken a vote to that effect. But you're not going to see towns across Long Island, taking affirmative votes. I think it'll be the opposite if anybody opts out. But I think a lot of the towns are realizing that this is an industry that's emerging in New York, and I don't see a lot of them opting out.
Cool. Very good. And this is actually a great segue. Our next speaker is going to be Mark Alessi from the Business Incubator Association of New York. Mark, thank you so much for being here today. I know you bring a lot to this discussion, so I'll let you go ahead and tee off.
Thank you. I actually have a few slides. Again, coming from the Business Incubator Association of New York State, we're a statewide trade association of incubators that was started back in 2005. Back then, it was 15 incubators that came together that weren't speaking to each other on a regular basis, and they formed the association. We're now at 110 incubators across the state, which surprises a lot of people that we have that many incubators in the state. And I'd say that there's still some incubators out there that haven't joined. So we have even more than 110 incubators in New York State. In our association, there's over 3,000 startups that are mentored through these incubators. So because of that experience, we've been pulled into the conversation about this emerging industry. We have our board is a representative of the entire state. There's 10 incubator regions in the state, and the large majority of them are represented on our board and elected by our membership. And we provide a number of programs specifically for incubators. And we train incubator managers on how best to de-risk companies. But to get to the point at hand, we're going to be very active on helping to de-risk the cannabis startups. So typically, even when you're not talking about cannabis, 1 out of 10 startups succeed outside of incubation. But when you actually mentor and incubate a company appropriately, 50% of those incubated startups succeed. That's data from the Kauffman Foundation. And it's based on national data for incubation, but it's an experience that we've seen here in New York State as well. So when you're looking at cannabis incubation, one, it's mandated by the law. It's in the bill a number of times, the importance of incubation and entrepreneurship programs. I believe the legislature and the governor, in passing this legislation, there were a number of driving factors, but one of them is the economic development opportunities, and that's why we're meeting here today. What is interesting about this emerging industry in New York, which is projected to be a $4 billion intrastate industry, is it's going to be wholly contained in New York. The supply chain can't go to other states right now because of the federal, the conflict with federal laws. And it's a pretty unique situation, but at the same time, for the business community here on Long Island and across the state, it poses a very interesting dynamic for us to meet the supply chain demands. And some of our legacy businesses, many of which are probably attending today's seminar, along with companies that have not yet come into creation, are going to be able to feed that supply chain and that $4 billion industry. So our goal is to ensure that there's appropriate mentorship for some of these emerging entrepreneurs. In the bill, and I think Steve touched upon this, there's a particular focus on disadvantaged communities and entrepreneurs, making sure that they have access to this economic opportunity. And so there is a focus statewide to ensure that anyone that is looking to get involved with this industry has the appropriate mentorship and access to entrepreneurship training. And that's something that we're trying to create an architectural plan of right now. The goal is no wrong door. So the importance of incubating these new startups, and Steve illuminated in each sector, whether it's cultivation, we're seeing curriculum being offered and potentially adopted at a number of universities. That curriculum is going to teach people how to actually create this kind of product. But once you understand how to create the product, understanding, one, the laws and the regulations, and two, how to market it and how to set up a business so that it could be more successful. Distribution, retail outlets, all of this still needs appropriate business planning, and especially if it's a first-time entrepreneur entering a completely new industry, the incubation piece is that much more important. And like I said, there's 10 incubation regions across the state. Bianis helps to coordinate all 10 of those regions. And our goal is to make sure that there's a location in each region of the state that entrepreneurs can access and then have actual virtual programming. But I can't think of an industry like this. I believe it's pretty unprecedented to have an entire supply chain for a $4 billion industry within the state. And that's why it's important for us to pull together, take a look at what each opportunity is across that supply chain, and ensure that there's going to be innovation in this industry. And New York has oftentimes been able to lead the rest of the United States when it comes to emerging industries. And there's no reason that we can't do this here without the appropriate planning.
Well said. Well said. And Mark, if any of our entrepreneurs on this call want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that we can get in touch with you?
Our website is bianis.com, BIANYS.com. Our phone number is on there. My email is mark.alessi@bianis.com, but you can get me through the website.
Excellent. Thank you. And I thought what you said about business success, 10% of businesses succeed in the first year. I might have missed what percent of businesses succeed through the incubator program. How is there much success, and how does that work?
It's a five-fold increase in success rate. It's about 50% of incubated businesses succeed and go on to revenue and production and sustainability. The whole purpose of incubation is, it doesn't matter what the industry is, although it's important to pull in experts from that industry for providing that flavor. But entrepreneurs often face very similar obstacles, and once you have somebody at the table that's seen this movie 100 times before, they can help you navigate it a whole lot easier and avoid some of the missteps.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for being on this call. We're going to jump over to our other Mark, Mark Maniscalco from Exergy. Mark, I think, has some really great insight about lessons learned from other states. Mark has been doing this work for quite some time, and is really, I've come to learn, he's got a very diverse knowledge on the cannabis industry. So Mark, if you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and some lessons learned from other states, that would be really wonderful. Thanks.
Patrick, thank you. And hello, everyone. Good morning. Mark, I enjoyed your presentation. So a little bit about myself. Mark Maniscalco, I'm the Global Sales Manager for Exergy. We're a manufacturer based on Long Island, and what we produce are heat exchangers. And specifically, the heat exchangers are used in the extraction process for hemp and cannabis. Our main industries are pharmaceutical and semiconductor. And about 8 years ago, we received an inquiry about some extraction, specifically hemp at the time in Pennsylvania. And we developed a relationship with the company. And then we saw a growing market within the hemp industry, and the introduction of legalization within Colorado, California, through the West Coast. And we said, wow, here's an opportunity as an OEM on Long Island to get our foot in the door of a burgeoning market, a huge industry, not just locally now in New York State, but globally. In that time, what we did as a marketing campaign was to introduce Exergy based on our fundamental philosophies: pharmaceutical grade, consumable, FDA, semiconductor, drug, injectable product. And this is where we have seen great success, because previously within the industry itself in states throughout the country and in other countries around the world, is that it was a mom and pop situation. And what we decided internally was, this is going to become the next big thing. It's a new market that is thrust upon the world, obviously within the United States first. And we want to be at the forefront, and we want to take advantage of our quality product and bring it to the industry. And with that, what we have done is we've worked with engineering houses who work with pharmaceutical companies. We have worked with what I like to call the mad geniuses of the cannabis world. Some of these men and women could sit in a NASA facility and do the same thing as a rocket engineer. And we have found great success in that it was an untapped market. It was it's and still is really unregulated outside of the state to state. And we wanted to be part of the growth and growing it in the right direction for the future. And a lot of what we do, and Patrick, you and I have discussed this, is that we want to share that this market, and I think released within New York State, to do it properly, we want to release it as a food grade consumable industry, and that needs to be the benchmark. I have spent years going to trade shows, visiting customers from what I call seed to ground to retail counter, and a lot of it is still not regulated to the point where it's if it was a food plant and or if it was a pharmaceutical drug manufacturer. And that's where I think New York State wants to be. And I believe it's where Exergy has always pushed our product in terms of the purity of the extraction process, what someone is ingesting, and I believe that is extremely important. And for us and what we've done, that's been a significant part. Now, within these 8 years, I've also developed relationships with customers who are growing, who are selling to wholesalers on the extraction process, going through the multiple steps of taking the leaf or plant into the oil. So I understand the processes that are involved. And with that, I've understood the regulations between state to state, obviously the banking issues, how the money is diverse, and how payments are made both locally and or federally. So I just have I have some great insight on the industry in general and where it has come from 8 years ago to where it is now. And that's really what I have to offer, and always available for conversations within Long Island and or globally. And also, I just want to add, I think it's important, Patrick, you and I had spoken about this. If anyone would really like to understand the industry in general, I do recommend a visit to the MJ Biz Show in Las Vegas this coming October. I can send the dates. This show is the global point for the cannabis and hemp industry. It shows everything from seed to ground to retail. People come in from worldwide, and it is as a learning experience and a great understanding of the industry. I say it's a must. I've met individuals from big pharma to Wall Street to big soft drink and tobacco at this show, and I think it's a must. And if anyone would like to go, please let me know, and I can also help arrange some tickets and whatnot.
Excellent. Well,
and that's it. Thank you, Patrick.
No, hey, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your insight. We have a question from my buddy David Nera. If considering an edible product for manufacturing, is there a recommended path forward for doing your own extraction versus buying raw quality product? Follow-up question, what labs are present on Long Island for verification of product quality that is natural? Now, I want to address the second part real quick. The labs here on Long Island, we have a ton of labs. We don't have enough. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough. And this is actually a conversation for education. Dr. Vogel is going to come up next. So this is a really good segue. We need to encourage students to study STEM education so that we can get more young individuals in our testing labs. Those testing labs were critical during COVID, and they're going to be more critical as we push on. I was just on with our pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, and biotech group yesterday, and they were all complaining about, well, a couple different things, but chief among them, we need more labs here on Long Island. So to answer that question, there are labs, and we can find a number of them for you if you like. But I think the first part, though, is it recommended doing your own extraction versus buying raw quality product? I don't know, Mark, if you have any insight on that.
So, Patrick, yes, I do on both parts. And I wanted to, after I answer the first question, I wanted to follow up on your response. So it's always based on the raw plant, whether it be hemp and or cannabis. Now, the extraction process, it's multiple steps. The first step is an extraction, whether it's CO2, ethanol, propane, butane based. And what the finished product, mostly CO2, it comes out, it looks like peanut butter. And then there's a second step that it's called the winterization process. Now, this process is the most time-consuming process within the extraction, and it basically breaks it down from what we call peanut butter to an oil. The oil is similar to crude oil that comes to a refinery before it's processed, and then usually in the crude oil, it's wholesaled. And that's what we've generally seen within the industry is, multiple extraction companies will have their process and ship it to a wholesaler. They'll do the winterization and then it's pushed off. This is something, and this is the defining moment in the quality of the product. So it's really, it's based on how you want to set up. Do you want to be a grower? Do you want to be an extractor? And most companies, a lot of companies who buy equipment, they're just doing the first step in the extraction process. And then there's a wholesaler. And obviously as you go on through the stages, it becomes more really lab based. And that's where what you said is over the years that I've been involved in the industry, I've visited Pfizer in Kalamazoo to help work for COVID vaccinations, Moderna, Lonza, Amgen. And I've walked into cannabis labs that rival everything that goes on within those facilities. Companies that get it right and want to go straight across the board, their processes and their equipment rivals what's in Fortune 500 pharmaceutical companies around the world. And that's where the industry needs to go. That's where Long Island, specifically in New York State, needs to be, is in that realm of let's bring this to another level. Because what you see in Colorado or in Washington is oversaturation of the market. And everyone's fighting for a piece of the pie. And the quality isn't there. It's just an abundance and over in inventory. So, yes.
Sure. Well, I think that while places like Colorado and Washington have paved the way for this industry,
yes,
a place like Long Island that can be very heavily focused on quality and control and commercialization can really be the proving ground for this product and really bring it up to the standard that we all expect.
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%.
Excellent. Excellent. And that question was from my friend David Denera over at Millennium Web. He asked to follow up any water-soluble solutions yet instead of oil.
So CO2, we've never run process that has water. Butane, propane, it all comes down to that. There's for CO2, it's high pressure. Ethanol is what they call a falling film based process. So there's multiple. What the extractor or grower to extractor needs to decide is which process they want to focus on.
Excellent.
The end result is always the same because it goes to a wholesaler.
Excellent. Thank you. And another note from William Keller regarding Queens College being a great place for young students to get out into the labs. That's a great point. We're going to talk further about that. And I think really the connection between education and the shop floor has really become the crux of what I've been doing here at the trade association. Across all 11 industries of manufacturing here in Long Island, there's one common denominator issue, and that's workforce. And building that pipeline of talented graduates to industry is critical to keeping young people here on Long Island, to keeping businesses here on Long Island. And if young people and businesses are staying, that means families are staying, everyone's together, kumbaya. And that talent pipeline, I think, is crucial. And I want to thank Dr. Richard Vogel for really having his crystal ball out and seeing the demand that this law was going to create. And so Farmingdale State College was able to very intelligently put together a really cool program to produce, I think that they are professional level certificates, or is it a master's program?
It's an undergraduate certificate.
Oh, it is. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, it's undergraduate certificate.
Cool.
So.
Well, then I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you talk about the great work that you've done. Thanks for joining us.
All right. I have to say, I'm an economist by trade. So when you talk about crystal balls, it's sometimes my forecasts are right on, and sometimes they're a little off. But
you did well this time. Thank you.
Right. In this particular case, I think we did well in the sense that I started looking at this. We are started out as a college of agriculture, school of agriculture, back in 1912, and that's the roots of Farmingdale State College. Now we have our last program left in agriculture is, of course, our horticulture program. And one of the things that I was looking at is when the governor of New York first started talking about recreational marijuana, legalizing recreational marijuana about 3 years ago. I thought about this and looked at this in terms of what the skill sets were out there. And this is an industry that is kind of coming in from the cold, there's been marketing of this product, there's been production of this product for decades, but it was always illegal. And now it's looking at this in terms of bringing this into a legal marketplace and creating opportunities for those individuals that are looking for potentially changing careers, getting into a new career, looking at this as an opportunity in terms of entrepreneurship and those types of things. And so 3 years ago, we actually started to kind of plan this out. And while we did get a little bit interrupted by COVID, given that the length of time that it takes to get a program put together and submitted and approved through both SUNY and state education, the fact that we have this program that was approved, as a matter of fact, probably about a month before the state law came into effect. So, but as I say, the idea here was to focus more or less on two areas. One was on the production side, which coincides very well with what we do in terms of our horticulture program itself. And the other side was on the business end. And so our program really combines both some courses in cannabis production, cultivation and production. And then we have several courses on the business side, especially on the legal aspects of the market. And of course, we are currently working on getting those courses in place for the fall, especially as we have to align them with the recent law that was passed in this area. And also we have coursework in management and marketing, especially focused on the dispensary side and the retail side. And then we have a course on the financial aspects, because obviously, given the status of marijuana in terms of federal law, there are issues in terms of banking and things of this nature. And so we did want to have some focus on financial and accounting issues related to the cannabis industry, so that anybody that was planning on going into this industry would have some insight into it. Of course, they probably would go see an expert such as Steve Melito as well, but obviously this would give them some better insight. They'll have some insight on the legal aspects of the marketplace too, but they'll probably still have to consult with an attorney to greater extent. We also included in our programming a course on the health aspects of marijuana, and it focuses not just on recreational marijuana, but also on medical marijuana, since there is a fairly large medical marijuana market in the state that currently exists as well. And we have one course in economics on the actual marijuana market. So this is where we kind of come in. And what we have established is it's a one-year certificate if it's done full-time, and it's a total of 8 courses, and it's totally online. The presumption was that we were looking at this as offering this not just to Long Island, but to the state. There are not a lot of programs, of training programs for, to develop a workforce in this field. In New York, we're actually the first certificate program in the state, and in SUNY. There's a program out of New Jersey. There's a program, a graduate program out of Vermont, but not many programs in the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic. And then there's a couple of programs that exist in the Midwest. There's one in Michigan, which really focuses on the areas that Mark was talking about in terms of the actual processing. More of a chemical engineering kind of set of programs. So what we're looking at is trying to create a talented workforce. There may be people that are already in the industry that are looking to expand their skills. There may be people that are in an illicit part of the industry, what has been an illicit part of the industry, that are looking to move into the field as well. And they're probably going to need to have greater skill sets, especially in the marketing and management aspect of things, as they're able to actually create marketing campaigns of some sort, or advertise their product out there. And so that's where we do come in. These courses can be taken as standalone courses. They can also be taken as the full certificate. And we will be looking at expanding out the curriculum and refining the curriculum, because, as I say, we started developing this about 3 years ago, and this was before the shape of the law that would actually pass came into being, and that we knew exactly what that was going to be. And we do think that there's a lot of opportunity for it. We did do some surveys of students, and seemed to find that there would be interest even here amongst our own current student body, and did reach out to some industry experts in the design of the program. And
well, I mean, of course, I want to thank you for what you've done, and then thank Farmingdale State College for being really a phenomenal partner with the Manufacturing Trade Association here on Long Island. Again, creating that pipeline between the classroom and the shop floor is critical. But then I think also going backwards from the shop floor to the classroom is really quite critical as well. I mean, teachers need to know what's going on, what are the needs of industry, and Farmingdale has been really a phenomenal partner in helping us do that. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, Dr. Vogel, what's the best way? How does somebody become enrolled in this program? And I like what you said about it being, you can do standalone classes, because there's going to be a fair amount of people that are past that traditional education age and are going to want to reinvent themselves. And I think that Harry Carpenter next is really going to do a great job of talking about adapting to change and taking your skills and utilizing them for the cannabis industry. But Dr. Vogel, is there any way, how would somebody get involved?
Well, there's actually two ways. I mean, anybody can email me. I'm putting my email actually in the chat right now. At richard.vogel@farmingdale.edu. But actually, if somebody wanted to enroll in the program, if they just went to the Farmingdale website and filled out the application, they could contact admissions. We actually have the program display up at the website. And we have some students admitted into the cannabis certificate already. We just started marketing it. As a matter of fact, the program was approved by SUNY back in and State Ed back in February, and we are actually getting all the marketing materials out there. But they're up. We do have them up at the website, and there's the application. If somebody just wanted to take a class or two, they could fill out the form to be as a non-matric student and take one or two classes as well. Cool. And as long as they're a New York State resident, they would be paying the state tuition rates. So,
well, make sure that those graduates go from the classroom straight to Mark Alessi's office and to talk about how they can start creating businesses and innovating products here on Long Island. They have to stay.
Right.
So I tried to make that connection between students who are reinventing themselves and Harry Carpenter, who really does, I think, a really cool job of talking about how you can adapt your own personal skills to meet the needs of industry. And he's also going to talk about what he's done at Citron Cooperman regarding this new emerging industry of cannabis products and how those tax implications can impact business. Harry, take it away.
Great. Patrick, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I appreciate it. And great job by all the panelists. Really insightful. So I'm going to start with a brief introduction. My name's Harry Carpenter. I'm a partner with Citron Cooperman. I am the co-practice leader firm-wide. We are the 22nd largest firm in the country. We are one of the very few in the top 25 firms in the country that are actually willing to work in this space. I'm proud of the practice we built. I was lucky enough to get involved from the very beginning. So I've been doing this for over 4 years now, and it's been awesome. And a couple things. First of all, I think I heard it early on. You know, Dr. Vogel talked about banking. You know, it's financing, and then I think Mark Mariscolo talked about the new market. Well, guess what? It's still federally illegal. So just from the accounting real quick, there are federal tax codes that apply to federally legal businesses that most people nationwide don't understand or ever have to deal with, because most businesses are not federally illegal. So you're going to need Steve Melito, his firm. You're going to need legal advice. You're going to need accounting advice if you're going to get into this industry. If you touch the plant, you are subject to the tax code 280E. I will not talk about 280E, but it's something that if you're cultivating, if you're dispensing, if you're manufacturing, you're touching the plant, you're going to have to apply those tax codes. Very important. I'll get into the opportunities in a second. Another big thing, a lot of people on here, I know that Steve also talked about the various licenses that are out there. we have a lot of experience, the last few rounds of licensing in New Jersey. We've done it through Massachusetts. We are the leading accounting firm on the East Coast, but we also have 4 offices in California. We serve clients nationwide. When the regulations and the application process rolls out, that will drive what you need to do to comply and really put your best foot forward to get that license. And I'd say, for example, in 2018 in New Jersey, there was a 1,000-point system when they gave out the licenses. 100 out of 1,000 points related to accounting and finance. So, forecast and banking and all the things that you need to do. So, you're going to need legal and accounting. But let me talk about the cool thing about this industry and really what it did for me, because I think that I'm hoping some folks in the attendees will think about their own skill set, what they do, what they went to college for, and what they're good at, and sort of think about how you might want to support the industry. So I am a CPA. I actually had in my 8th grade yearbook that my future occupation was going to be a CPA, but it never said a future cannabis CPA, because nobody in the world could have thought about this industry, coming to fruition the way it has. And by the way, I still believe we are in the first inning. I really do. We have come so far along, and every year more and more states. Connecticut just recently completed the trifecta, but we all know New York and Long Island, just in itself, it is it's ready for this industry, and there's a lot of opportunity. So I could have never. How lucky am I that I'm so passionate about this industry? I decided to be an accountant. I passed the CPA exam. I went to college for that. And, 15 years into my career, the opportunity for me to apply my skill set to an industry I'm passionate about, quite frankly, I already had fire in the belly, but it really ignited me, pun intended. So I just took the ball and I ran with it. And not only was I able to do something, that I'm passionate about and apply my skill set, but it actually helped accelerate my career. And in 2019, I made partner after, really building a practice from nowhere in my firm. And, there's networking, there's great people, there's so many entrepreneurs. But when you get involved in this industry, you're going to see that there's a lot of people with passion, and it's just a great feeling when everybody is working together and creating jobs and creating opportunities. It's just sort of an amazing feeling. I know Mark mentioned earlier about the event in Vegas. That is October 22nd. I am going. I'm scheduled to go there as well. I'm also going to give a plug, and I have no connection to any of these groups, but the CWCB in New York is a good one. It's at the Jacob Javits Center. 2 years ago, there's 1,200 exhibitors. You really get a good feel for the industry, and and it's not all the different businesses. And I'm going to get into a couple of those in a second. So just one more thing back to my story. So I joined this practice. We literally started with 0 clients. We built the practice significantly. I made partner in 2019. And then I happen to be from New Jersey. I do have clients in Long Island, and I am serving the tri-state area and also nationwide. And then it actually resulted in, I went from struggling to try to figure out how I'm going to, end my career and make partner, to being named the top 50 CPAs in the state of New Jersey for the 2nd year in a row by New Jersey Business Magazine. That was this year and last year. So partner 19, 20, and 21 having these awards. And the entire write-ups are about what I've been able to do in this industry. So the opportunity is there. Think about your skill sets. But honestly, when you talk about the various licenses, retail, cultivating, delivering, manufacturing, what can you do to support sort of those industries? And I'll tell you, it's going to be the things you'd expect, retail and somebody who's able to grow. But you have cannabis media companies. You have graphic designers and website developers, security companies, green lights, nutrients in soil to help you grow, Armored cars. You know, there's a genius in Colorado who bought a first armored car because everything was transferred in cash and product, and then they just bought one after another and became very wealthy in that regard. Interior design, you'd be surprised. I actually have clients who are applying for licenses that have given equity to somebody, because a lot of these entrepreneurs, some of them have money and some of them don't, and they're looking for investors, and some are willing to give sweat equity. And believe it or not, in the applications, I've seen many times where somebody who's applying to be a dispensary not only has to show the floor plan but in their application, but actually has to show the interior design. They want to know, what is the store going to look like on the inside? You know, and it's the interior design, it's the build out of the casings and everything like that. They also have, you know, they're scientists. I heard that earlier. I have a client that actually absolutely believes that synthesizing THC is the next thing, and he's working on nanoscience technology. So, you know, and then obviously hardware. There's I have a recent client, I'm sure I could say the name. It's called 2Chill, and it's an interesting apparatus that is a glass, sort of like a bong inside with stainless steel on the outside. So there, you know, there's a lot of creative ways to get in here, and then you get like guys like me, all right, and guys like Steve, and you're gonna have professional services, right? Any business is you know, gonna need insurance, gonna need legal advice, gonna need an accountant, and also other things, HR support, payroll, public relations, all those types of things. So lots of opportunities. There's another. Dr. Richard Vogel mentioned about the legal market. You know, yes, there's opportunities for folks that have sort of been in this industry in a legal capacity. You know, I had a woman call me and say, I've been making these chocolates for 20 years. I want to make them legally, and I want to get into the business, and that is not the only person I've run across in my networking and in my clients that is somebody like really passionate and wants to come out of the shadows and actually do it sort of legally. So I guess I'll leave you with my message is, think about it. It may be starting a cannabis business specifically, you know, dispensing, cultivating, or it just very well may be, what can I do? How can I support this industry? What am I good at? What skills do I have? What am I doing already? Such as Harry, who's already a CPA and doing accounting, and now I could really take that skills and knowledge, and when you apply it to something you're passionate about, like I am, and everybody on this call is, you'll actually get a better product, you get a better team, and everybody you know, feels probably better about it than if I came in and just did regular accounting for non-cannabis clients. So sure. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'll put my email address in the chat room for anyone that wants to reach out to me and continue the conversation. And Patrick, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. Citron Cooperman has always been a really great partner of Ignite's. So I want to thank you for your partnership. Thank you for being here. Thanks for adding your email to the chat. I do have a question from Andrew Capek. He says, a metric is the regulatory cannabis system used in many states of the recreational cannabis states across the U.S. Do we know what system New York will use?
No.
No. Okay. That's a fair answer.
Yeah, and I would just point out that a lot of things typical to New York laws, even though this law is a very large law, there are still a lot of things that will be left to regulation that will have the force and effect of law, but that gives the Office of Cannabis Management a lot of latitude to develop and build out things. Like, for instance, things that a lot of everybody has been talking about, like making products, making cookies, making brownies, all of those things, probably a processor's license, but at the same time, you'll probably see a little bit more language in the rules and regulations about how that all is going to work.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
Steve, Patrick, can I ask Steve a question? Steve, just from past experiences, Mark, part of the panel, has New York understood the process of the day of legalization, what we're going to do as a state to allow the seed to come into the state for cultivation? Because previously, within every other legal state in the United States, there's been what's called a free pass. Because how do you allow a seed to come into a state when it was technically illegal the day before, and it can't be cultivated in the state prior to the passing of the law. Have we determined how that's going to happen?
That's a really interesting question. One thing I would point to is that we may not need to actually do that because we already have ROs. We already have medical marijuana here that are,
okay.
They have to do everything from beginning to end. So if we needed seed, from them, they would have them, and they're going to be very high level products at this point. So that's one way, but there is a good question. What I will say, unfortunately, again, I don't believe the law actually speaks to that, but the rules and regs probably will.
Okay, that's great to know, because I know that that's been an issue within other states. There's all of a sudden, let's put on the blinders for one day and allow the strains to come in, so to speak. Thank you.
I think a lot of that is already here, though, through the medical marijuana program.
Okay, great.
We had a question for Dr. Vogel. If the course is online, how do students get hands-on practice?
Well, in terms of the courses, I think in particular that the question might be directed are on the production courses themselves, and with online classes. While they're online classes, the instructors will have exercises that the students will be able to do and labs of various types that they'll be able to conduct at home, which will give them some hands-on practice. Obviously, because of federal laws related to financial aid and other aspects like that, we can't actually have cannabis on those college grounds because that would impact our ability to be able to be eligible for student federal financial aid programs and things of that nature. But the students certainly would have exercises in plant propagation, plant production of various types that they would have hands-on exercises that what they would be doing at home. The same thing in terms of the business courses. They would be able to be engaged in simulations of various types that the instructors may put in place for some of those courses. We've been doing online instruction for a long time at Farmingdale, and we're just moving this into another arena itself.
Cool. Very good. A question from Jessica Frey. Will the presentations be available? I've been recording this conversation, so I will ensure that everybody gets a copy of this recording. And then I also might ask Mark Alessi if he wants to share his slides. You can either send that to me or I'll work it out. That way you can send it to everybody on the call.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that, seeing really no other questions here, I'm going to start to wrap this up. I just want to talk about our apprenticeship program. I was talking before about the need across 11 sectors of manufacturing. The one common denominator issue is skilled labor. And that's not unique to Long Island. It's not unique to New York. It's really across the globe. A wonderful solution we came across was a collaboration between the SUNY system and the New York State Department of Labor, who put together a registered apprenticeship program for individuals that are already working in manufacturing to earn while you learn. So you can go to night classes and at state schools and continue to build your skill set while you are on the job. I think it's really, it's a wonderful program. It is the solution that I think so many companies are looking for. I know we have a lot of young people on the call today. Give me a shout, shoot me an email, patrick.boyle, B-O-Y-L-E, at ignitelongisland.org to find out more about that. Also want to plug our golf outing coming up on the 26th. I know a lot of folks haven't had that face-to-face interaction. Our golf outing is a great opportunity to get that done. And what else? I just want to talk again about our wonderful board members. Anne Shabunko-Moore, president of GSE, Anthony Acampora, Silverman Acampora, MLE, president of ANZ, Phil Caniglio, director of the DeMatteis School of Engineering at Hofstra, Jordan Finkelstein, president of Exergy, who was on the call today with us, Mitchell Reckler, president of Reckler Equity Partners, Michael D'Addario, vice president of operations at D'Addario and Company. D'Addario lives here on Long Island, East Farmingdale. They make 70% of the world's guitar strings here on Long Island. I love talking about it. They're a great company. They did a great job during COVID. They started producing PPE. They did wonderful. Also want to talk about our newest board member, Dr. Hank Foley, president of NYITUC on our board. We have a number of higher educational institutions. We're building that bridge between the shop floor and the classroom. And I want to thank all of our partners for doing that with us. I also want to thank again our sponsors, Industrial Coverage, Burden, Wells Fargo, Citron Cooperman, Denko Energy Management, Summit Safety and Security, Dale Carnegie. If I miss anyone, I apologize. I just want to thank everybody for being on this call. We had a really great turnout. I hope you all found this very interesting. Wow, we still have 24 attendees who stuck with us all the way to the end. So thank you very much. I do see one more question. So hang tight 1 second. Okay, great question. When will you have another online webinar to keep our entrepreneurs up to date? Well, I had this question before we started as well. And my answer was, if this goes well, we'll do another. Quite frankly, I think this went very well. So I think we'll do another maybe in mid-September. Give us some time to regroup. I know August is usually a pretty low time for having events because everyone's out on vacation. So we'll do this again in mid-September, maybe early October. October is manufacturing month here in the state of New York, where we get to talk about all the great products and careers and people that are working in manufacturing. And we open up all of our shop floors and invite all the schools and students to come by and take a peek at what we're doing. Here on Long Island, we're making some really cool things. We got robots, we got lasers, we got airplanes, we got periscopes for submarines. It's really very diverse, and that diversity makes us very strong. So again, I want to thank our panelists for what they do. I want to thank them for their partnership. And at that, I'm going to close this call. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Patrick.
Take care. Thank you, Patrick.